Hello and welcome to the All of God's Daughters channel. This is the 4th episode in the Preparing for Marriage series. I'd like to talk about marriage being a responsibility. And I think that this is something that every woman should know before she decides to get married. Because a lot of times we romanticize marriage and we forget about the fact that it will still be life. And we will, in many cases, have more responsibilities than we had before. I'd like to read from Proverbs 14 verse 1. Every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with her hands. This woman that builds her house, she's diligent, she's productive, she manages the house, she improves the house, and she raises a family and the estate of the family. And this woman is somebody that can be trusted to manage what this house already has and also help add to what the house already has. And this can mean material things as well, but this can also mean the atmosphere, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. But the foolish plucketh it down with her hands. So this woman is negligent, she's idle, she doesn't know how to manage the house or their affairs or the estate, and she's not really productive. And she wastes whatever has been gotten. So I'd also just like to remind us about Psalms 127 verse 1. Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. So this woman that builds her house understands where her power comes from. She understands where her abilities come from and where the wisdom and the principles that she will be using to build her house will come from. So a wise woman will add to her household. She will take care of what needs to be taken care of. Sometimes this will mean outsourcing, but the point is it will get done under her management. I often tell my husband that he's a good husband, but what I actually mean is two things. He's morally good, but he's also functionally good. And I believe that every married woman should strive to be functionally good and not just morally good. So what do I mean with a woman should be functional? This just means that the house is being managed, the home is being managed, and she's also managing the atmosphere of the home. Women have a special ability to create a homey atmosphere. But when we are lazy and when we neglect our responsibilities and when we do not focus on being productive, then many times we can tear down our homes instead of building them. But maybe you'll say, I'm not married yet. This isn't applicable. I don't have my own home yet. Or maybe you can say that you're living alone and you think you're doing a pretty good job and you're happy as it is. But I'd like for us to think just a little bit further into the future. What habits can I build now? What mindsets, what skills can I develop that can help me one day when I'm married to do a better job so that I don't have to struggle in the moment, so that I am prepared, so that it goes well with me when it's time for me to function in that role? How can we start now? So something that I would encourage you to do is to look for things to be responsible for and to take very good care of them. Maybe you can choose one room in the house that you'd always keep tidy as much as possible. Maybe if you're sharing the house with other people, it might be a bit more difficult, but perhaps choose the living room. I'm sure everyone will appreciate that. I'd also encourage you to learn to manage your time well. Managing your time means you know when to spend time on your responsibilities. And I think it's really important that we learn to manage our time before we get married, because if we get used to lazing around, kind of just postponing getting things done, going to the store whenever we feel like it, once we are married and we have to have two lives now, falling into the same schedule so that you can make enough time for each other, then it can get really difficult. If you haven't given yourself the opportunity to learn the necessary discipline and skills. I try to keep time management really simple. I divide my day into 3 blocks. I have a morning block, a work block, and that's basically from 8 to 5, and then an evening block. And I divide all my responsibilities into these blocks. I try and get as many things done relevant to the block that I am in. keeping things simple will prevent us from feeling overwhelmed. You have to ask yourself, what responsibilities do I have? And then you have to write them down and prioritize them. Making time for hobbies and fun is important, but many times we don't really think about how we're spending our time, and then these things can sometimes take the majority of our time, and a lot of our responsibilities will be neglected. And when we are married, when we are responsible for the household and we have other people directly influenced by our negligence, then this won't work as well anymore, and we won't get away with it as much because it will cause chaos or conflict or trouble down the road. So we have to learn to get the right order when we are unmarried. Then we won't struggle as much to get order when we are married because we have practiced. Developing routines and systems, this is really important. For example, do you wash the dishes every day? Do you have laundry piling up? Do you clean, or is your house a little dirty? Do you take care of yourself every day? Do you take care of your finances? Maybe you're watching too much TV. What we have to ask ourselves is, am I teaching myself to be profitable, or am I teaching myself to be lazy? Because your habits are not going to change overnight just because you said, I do. You won't suddenly become disciplined. You won't suddenly be able to manage a house when you have maybe been neglecting it because you are alone, and maybe you don't feel as encouraged to do that. But notice that the verse says a woman and not a wife. Now, I understand that in the context it is speaking about a wife, but every woman still has the responsibility to take care of her responsibilities, married or not, and it pleases the Lord when we don't neglect what He has given for us to take care of, because that also proves to Him and shows Him that we are able to take on more, and that if He has an excellent man, that He can trust that man to us, and that we will do our best to also take care of that man's household one day and his children, which will also then be our house and our children. And of course, we want to be good wives and good mothers one day, so we can't just let ourselves go and hope everything will go well later on. You won't be able to hide laziness or hide that you have no idea how to keep a house clean once you are married. So spare yourself the shame, spare yourself the trauma of feeling overwhelmed, and learn while you're still able. Then also, building the house has to do with the emotional part, the atmosphere of the house as well. Are we giving in to tantrum fits? Do we complain constantly if you are maybe living with others? Do you constantly point out the mistakes your family members make? Are you constantly asking them, why are you putting the cups here? Why did you do the dishes this way? Why did you leave this there? Why did you do that? When are you doing this? Are we nagging insistently? Are we kind, and do we use words that edifies the hearers? The habits that we build before we get married are the habits that we'll take into marriage. And I believe that the Lord can be gracious and that He can help us build good habits when we get married. And I've seen it in my own life as well, but I did try my best before I got married to build the good habits. Did I succeed at everything I tried? Absolutely not. And the Lord is very gracious, and for that reason we must also pray. Pray for ourselves and pray for our husbands. And in the next episode, I will specifically be talking about how we can pray for our future husbands. I hope to see you there.